I know what you are thinking. It's been a very long time since you've seen something like this. I have followed with the story, and I did not like the war arc. So first of all, let me, the angry and found the despair reviewer. Although I mostly use Eden Zero, it's Golden Week, so consider this a little special one before every single break. Of Boku no Hero Academia, chapter 310. To be honest, I wanted to review the Davi flashback because I'm just gonna make one thing perfectly clear here. I do not sympathize with Davi. If anything, everything that was displayed in that flashback just further showed what an unforgivable villain he is. Okay, maybe unforgivable is a little harsh, but it all in all just showed that it was him himself who snapped of it all. The circumstances that Endeavor raised him the wrong way is just one part of it. The rest is all Derby. I should have reviewed that chapter though, because I believe it was one heavy for debate. But we're not talking about that now. We're talking about a chapter that goes back a very long time ago, back when we saw the uses of it all. Hell, I should even have reviewed that. That was something that was actually worthy of talking about, really. You know. But yeah, in this one, we also shows the hypocrisy as well as the scumless level of humanity. They complain about heroes and how much they chickened out, many things more. But it's their own dangerous vigilism that is bringing forth this primitive power that is called judging everyone on how they look. Don't they realize that it's just because you gave up on heroes to begin with? You dancing in the palm of the villains all along. It sickens me. I hate Bakugo, but I really hope he actually says that humanity is not actually worth saving or protecting because they're being so ungrateful and so destructive. All in all, they see them chasing a very giant, towering woman or a girl with, well, it's actually very difficult to actually describe how she looks like. Is that a whale or a fox face? Either way, she is huge. And they attack her because they consider her to be dangerous looking. But then the one who actually saves her, of course, is Deku, with speed practically unheard of. All the while saying that they need to calm down. And the storm and the thunder is not helping the latter either. This is not a threat to anyone. Of course, they actually turn around, although I'll say that she's not looking suspicious. Now, when I think about it, yeah, it's a fox face. She even has a fox tail. All the while saying that she was slow to evacuate because this place she was living in actually did not have much problem. But now things have escalated so much, it is a problem. And now she's heading towards the shelter in the stormy night. But people getting hurt, so she was actually moving. She was looking suspicious because she was moving at a very dangerous pace and was actually looking all around it. But Deku is very nice here, even bringing forth back her umbrella and say that I will make, when she wonders that everything will go back to normal, he says he will make it so. As what I like about you, Deku, you want to bring forth back the peace. And then All Might pulls up in his All Might mobile, as Deku says that he needs to escort a lady to the shelter. But not before All Might gives him Deku a bag of, his favorite food, tonkatsu. And so Deku looks at the top of a Tokyo tower, as now it's revealed that, it was revealed in last chapter as well, or so, something like that. But now the vestiges of One for All can truly communicate with Deku. Just like spiritual advising, they don't even need to pull him into their shadowy world. They can literally talk to him. As Daigoro Banjo, the fifth user, talks about, it's like they've been going back in time to the chaotic era. It is honestly making me so sick on how much society has fallen. That they dare, this is just like those, sorry, but this is very controversial talking about, but this is just like all those conspiracy theories of dangerous situation of society that people always preach about. Granted, when we got the corona, that's as close as that things have gotten to real life. People cowering, people isolating themselves, and people going back to the dark ages, all that stuff. It's for me, this is almost a callback to that thing. The fact that people are just turning back to things that they are when things are in trouble. Because chaos changes people. That's a viable fact. Alas, they have no clue on where Shigaraki, All for One, not even Dabi or the Numu, as well as the League, are. And the world is as easy as it is to pick up the bad guys. And Deku knows that unless he brings forth the full controlled power of All for One, One for All, he will not be able to defeat All for One. That's what it says. But then we go back to that mysterious dilemma before. You know, when the first user told to the second and third that he needed to help him as well. Oh, and by the way, we finally learn the first user's name. Supposedly, his name is Yoichi. Ichi taken from one, aka being the one, the first user of One for All. So we are just to assume that his full name is Yoichi Shigaraki, if All for One's testament of saying that Shigaraki is his last name is true. Either way, this one also reveals what a lot of people imply, that the sole reason why the second and third user are not talking to Deku is more like they are not acknowledging him. Because unlike the other users, these two are more hardened and have actually a lot of similarities to Stain in that scenario, even to Boku to the fact, anti-hero-like things and had done questionable things. To break the mold, Banju says that they should all talk about the different quirks in order to get a better handle on them. It's during this time the third user, and granted we do not hear the name of the first user. I really hate about that. Couldn't we just have gotten the name of the fifth user, not just his N name, his full name? Also, we see the faces of them all, and there's something we gotta talk about, but we'll try to talk about that by the end of this chapter. Either way, the fact that the third and the second, as well as the third, they all lived in the same time period, which means that was the peak on when All for One was the power, and was also the time when All for One controlled everything and people didn't even know it. But it seems to imply that the second user actually was in charge of a rebellion because he wanted to oppose All for One. He gathered allies and fought. However, it's also implied that he did questionable things, all in order to slow down All for One's power. And that is something like he says, I sought to bring down your brother and extinguish so many lives in the process, implying that what he did was not completely heroic, but it was also what considered necessary. Anti-hero-like abilities. There was not really any good side in that scenario, so in order to have even a chance of defeating All for One, he had to do some questionable things. Especially when he says, because in our battle, victory meant life and defeat meant death. And so he also says that, why should we lend our power to someone who want to save our mortal enemy in a ridiculous delusion? However, Yoichi, as we are now going to call him, the first user, is actually, here the translation is actually saying a lot different. In the first translation, he says, I agree it sounds delusional, but wasn't it because blah, blah, blah. But this implies that he actually says a ridiculous delusion, such a sad way to see it. And then we actually see something implications that this rocky center that, Yoichi and the One for All bearers are all sitting in is implied to actually be the same area where Yoichi was imprisoned by All for One. Because it actually turns out that the second and the third, they freed Yoichi. And they were actually prepared to shoot him down or kill him because, he after all was the brother of All for One. However, here is the fact that Yoichi is saying, you call this a ridiculous delusion. Then why on that day, knowing full way that I had ties to your mortal enemy, did you reach out your hand to talk to me? And reach out to help? Because that implies, Yes, Yoichi was the first user of One for All, but this all implies that it was the second user that actually gave him the push to become the hero that would eventually be the One for All bearers. I mean, that was a wrong way to put it. Simply by helping Yoichi escape from there, sparing his life, One for All has existed until this day. It's a very heartwarming scene. And Yoichi says that it never would have begun if you didn't lend a hand. And he's even pointing out that the fact that they are showing themselves to Deku, because note before they didn't. Isn't that the proof that you have actually acknowledged him as well? And so he absolutely believes, Yoichi wholeheartedly believes in Deku. He says that One for All will never bow to my brother. Because the moment you reached your hand out to me was when One for All truly was born. Because it's a power of camaraderie, so to speak. And this all makes sense on now why. So this answered a lot of questions, at the same time not answer them. And so every single user of One for All assembles before Deku in smoke screens like abilities and says things are bound to move quickly from here on out. In the original translation, it's implied that they was actually saying some pun implying that we have actually gotten a clue on what one of their users' quirks are. Because a very, very, very popular theory among the community was that the third and second user actually was Kirishima and Bakugo. Because of, well, their hairstyle. This showed their faces. The third user do not look like Kirishima. However, people elsewhere have something saying that he has engines in his body, implying that now they're saying he may very well be related to the Ida family. And given that they are now saying move quickly from now on, is implied, and the fact that Deku has become extraordinarily fast, are we to assume that is One for All's power? Or is it possible that the third or the second actually had some kind of fast quirk? Because the biggest problem here is, yes, the second user is not Bakugo, but he also still looks a little bit like Bakugo. The difference being he has a scar, an X-shaped scar, the same scar he did not have when he freed Yuichi, implying he got it somewhere along the line when All for One killed him. But this still doesn't answer the question of who the hell is the second user. Why does he look like Bakugo? Is this just an identical stranger, or are we just looking too much into it? Because his gauntlets, his gun, that fact, is also similar to Bakugo's gauntlet, so to speak. He even held it the same way. But no, this is not Bakugo. Otherwise, he would have actually said it. You know, he would have actually gone up, straight up and said it, that he is Bakugo to Deku. And I think Deku even would have recognized him, even if it wasn't. Because, why do people think it would have been Bakugo? Well, time travel and stuff like that. Something like that shouldn't be too far-fetched, That's what they're saying. Yeah, right. Well, whatever. The thing is here, what you all should listen to is the fact that I do not believe this is Bakugo. Having said that, I am willing to believe this is actually an ancestor of Bakugo. The only thing talking back to that is how could his bloodline have survived until now? Because again, he was part of a rebel alliance. He was the leader. He opposed All for One. All for One likely disposed of him fairly quickly. So, and he would have likely figured out he had a child. So, I'm just saying, if he is Bakugo's ancestor, how did they survive? That's the only thing that's talking back about that. So granted, we do not get their names, or any confirmation, or even implication of their quirks. Maybe just a small tease that they may have a speed-up like quirks, or maybe it's just One for All being just that powerful. But this is still a pretty awesome detailed chapter, in the fact that I'm awesome of it all. Because it does imply that yes, they did not acknowledge Deku fully, but now they are slowly getting to. The One for All users are standing by Deku's side. They are fighting him. So while Deku has left UA, which I did not like, by the way, because, well, I know it made sense, but I also didn't like it because he's not trusting his friends at all. It is still implication that he is not alone. So yeah, the chapter ends there. And now it's Golden Week. But if you ask me, I'm getting a little bit tired of this scenario. I like Deku. As long as this still keeps on talking with a Boku sentence, he will still be one of my favorite characters in this one. But I still want to see what happens to UA students. How are they dealing with all this? Not Bakugo, he could go to hell. I want to see Uchaku and Suyu. And yes, I want that traitor theory to finally be put to rest. Let it be over, and that's it. That's what I want to know. I mean, if you think about it, you should end the Deku sideline arc here and then go back to UA. But yeah, chaos is happening, but One for All users are standing by Deku. So maybe we have hope, but we got the origin of All for One. The kindness of the second user to Yuichi. That's how All for One managed to survive all up until now. And Yuichi gave it to the second user. His second in command was the third user. He gave it to him. It's not known how the third user somehow gave it to Hikage. But something tells me they knew about each other. So give me your thoughts if you have any.